In part 2 of our campaign overview preview for Total War Saga Troy, we'll be discussing Paris today. Now, we already went over Menelaus, and we really covered all of the details of the UI, all the different elements of the game. So today, this video is not going to be nearly as long. We're going to talk about Paris's unique starting location, all of his actual mechanics, everything like that that are very specific to Paris himself, but we're not going to go over all the UI elements like we did in the Menelaus video. If you want to see that, it's in the upper right corner. You can go ahead and click through it. It's about 30 minutes or so long, and we go through every single portion of the UI to give you an idea of how it's going to differ from Total War Warhammer 2, Total War Attila, or Total War Three Kingdoms, depending on which one of those three games of the more recent Total War series that you've played as of late. So let's start out with the actual character selection screen for Paris before jumping into the little campaign intro of him in engine in the actual overview of the map, and then we'll discuss his unique mechanics. Paris's starting situation, as it denotes in the lower left corner, is a bit different than Menelaus. Menelaus is, I think it said, either easy or normal, but Paris is hard. He is the Prince of Troy, and he has two specific faction mechanics: Priam's heir and Helen, my love. And the way that these work, I didn't mean for that to sound so flat. Helen, my love, for who I love, bequeath unto me your love. But going back on point here, for the faction, Priam's heir is almost like a set of missions in which Paris has to complete to essentially gain benevolence. And as he gains or maximizes his benevolence, he can then confederate his brother's faction, which is right there. The faction is called Hector of Troy, and then he can actually confederate both Hector and the city of Troy actual, led by Priam. So what this allows him to do is pretty much create one superpower by essentially going through a series of quests. And in the secondary faction effect, Helen, my love, he has Helen as an agent that not adorns him, but it kind of follows him in stride. And she kind of has a similar effect that Alarielle does from Total War Warhammer 2 in the Avalorn faction. So as she visits different portions of your faction, she bestows some civic bonuses upon those individual settlements. Also, the closer that they are to each other, Paris and Helen are happy when together and will affect their respective army and settlement positively. So as they kind of stay in proximity, they give each other bonuses, and as they are not close to each other, they will grow lonely when apart and will affect their respective army and entire faction negatively. So essentially you have to keep them within somewhat close proximity, and Helen can actually be captured, and your goal then at that point is to go snatch up Helen again. So with the recommended playstyle, we also get the heroes that Paris can summon. Remember, with Menelaus, we did not have access to the archer, but we did have access to the warlord. This time around, we get access to the archer skirmisher, a marksman unsurpassed in eliminating foes from afar, so more of a DPS glass cannon style character, and then archer trickster, a bow wielding hero who relies on mobility and deception to prevail. So a lot of crowd controlling types of effects, or CC as it's called, as well as some damage characteristics. Now, like I said, this is the first hero with only two different delineations. Everyone else gets three: Protector, Champion, Veteran, Champion, Ravager, I'm sorry, that's Companion, not Champion. Champion, Ravager, Vanquisher, and then Mentor, Commander, Warmonger. So you can see that the focus here is definitely on archery. And we'll see how that plays out, because when you take a look at the unique faction, or the unique faction units, you get the Champions of Troy, which are our great spear and shield infantry. And we saw when we played the battle with Hector, Hector had a lot of very different, very heavily armored infantry units. But with Paris, it's focusing more so on range units, the Trojan noble chariots, the Trojan princes, which are a bow infantry unit, and then the Trojan nobles, another bow infantry unit. So you get a sense for how this faction kind of sways, and it's definitely more towards the range combat. Victory conditions here, we've got the Homeric victory, which is the 12 personal missions of Paris himself, and then destroying Mycenae, Ithaca, and Sparta, and have at least 210 favor of Aphrodite, which we'll talk about in a bit, and defeat your first antagonist faction. Lastly, we have the Total War victory, which is very similar to Menelaus's. So this should be a very interesting campaign because it's going to be A, harder, and B, that there's an additional kind of effect with the Helen effect, right? Where you have to kind of keep this character alongside you or you suffer a lot of penalties. So let's jump into the actual intro, then talk a little bit about the history of, well, mythology of Paris before jumping into his actual campaign mechanics. It looks like we don't actually get any voiceovers for this one because, again, the game still is in development. Oh, here we go. Pretty much just going to be them talking to the advisor. In the meantime, though, will kind of give us a nice oversweeping portions of the land. It shows Menelaus, who's just completely pissed off right now. But we go over here to Asia Minor.
Your foolish passion has doomed us.
Swing down over the other portions of Hector's region and Paris's regions. So a much different geographical location than we have with Menelaus, which is, of course, to be expected here. And we have our first war target just to our south here. Mighty island of Lesbos to the south of that. I really love the distant art that you get to see, or the like the pottery motif repeating itself throughout the UI and other characteristics of the game. I think that's one of the more appealing things about this game is they've done a really good job of using strong UI elements in both this game and in Three Kingdoms. So I'm hoping we get something very cool with that too in Total War Warhammer 3. As we take control of Paris here, we see that this is right after he has claimed Helen from Menelaus. And this is a pretty interesting time in the history of Paris. I mean, he's always kind of been regarded as secondary to his brother Hector. Paris was always seen as like someone that would bring the downfall of Troy from his birth even. And he's the son of Priam and Hecuba, and upon his birth he was kind of seen as this individual, like the one individual from, I think the Temple of Apollo had a vision of a torch with Paris, and that this would bring the destruction of Troy. And Priam, his father, pretty much saw mercy on him and didn't want to kill him, even though knowing well that killing him probably would have spared Troy its destruction. And Paris kind of goes on about his life in a very kind of, I don't say sniveling, because there is a romantic side to Paris. Paris is this winner of hearts, whereas Hector is a winner of battles. Hector is the leader of the Apollonian Guard, defender of the Apollonian Gate, whereas Paris is kind of got his head in the clouds the majority of the time. Paris is a much different character than his brother. His brother leads from the front. Paris fires bows from the back. I mean, quite literally, that's their approach to both things in life and war. And Paris's big kind of claim to fame is a kind of a situation amongst the gods. And for very much the war of Troy, or the Trojan War itself, is not so much a competition between Trojans and Greeks, but the gods themselves. They play a huge part of this big mythology and this tale. And part of the portion prior to him actually getting Helen is this portion where Paris has to deal with deciding who is the most beautiful, which of the goddesses, Hera, Athena, or Aphrodite. And each one of them offers something in return, after stripping down naked too, of course, because why wouldn't they? Because it's Greek mythology. Hera pretty much says, hey, I'll let you have everything you see, like all of Europe, all of Asia, pretty much everything that the Greeks know exists, you can have it all. Not Aphrodite. Athena offers him, wisdom, extreme fighting skills, being the most proficient warrior in the land, whereas Aphrodite offers him Helen of Troy. And Helen of Troy, which we talked about in the Menelaus video, is a daughter of Zeus, and she is regarded as the most beautiful woman in the world right now. Essentially, she's a demigod anyway, so they always have some sort of completely otherworldly trait about them. And Paris goes with Helen of Troy. And this ultimately awards him the favor of Aphrodite, who helps him out throughout the entirety of the Trojan War, like helps to steal him away when Paris fights Menelaus, or Apollo helps guide the arrow that goes and kills Achilles. And Apollo and Aphrodite are on the side of the Trojans, and I think it was Poseidon and Athena were on the sides of the Greeks. I can't remember 100%, but I know that Athena is actually angry with Paris because Paris did not choose Athena as most beautiful. So throughout the entirety of the Trojan War, you get this huge dichotomy with the gods, which actually makes it very fun and overly mythological. But let's talk about some actual campaign mechanics now that I've talked enough about Paris's history and gotten probably a lot of it wrong. So you can see right here, and I kept this menu open for a reason, you can see that Paris is happy. Paris is elated by the love and adoration born to him by his treasured wife, Helen. Paris and Helen's love flourishes as they spend their days and nights together. Unit morale and then upkeep reduction for all of his armies. And this will kind of go up and down. So heroics at the very end of this, which gives him a 30% reduction to upkeep and a 20% bonus to morale. And at the very end, he's furious. He has a campaign movement range bonus, a damage bonus, a morale bonus. So it depends on where he's at in this line. Furious is if Helen's been captured, whereas lonely is if he just has not been around Helen for a long time and he's kind of feeling like he should hang out in a local pub with a book and a rose in it, waiting for her to come by. Wait, sorry. So let's jump on over to some other portions of this campaign, because he has something that is interesting that we kind of touched upon in the character selection screen. That's the Priam's Heir. And Priam's Heir is not just simply a bunch of quests that you're going to be doing. You have all of these little tiny minor quests that contribute to one major quest. Gain Apollo's favor. +1 per favor with Apollo. Fulfill your destiny. +10 for completing epic missions. And as you complete these, you'll progress up and down this scale. And it's an interesting scale, right? Because if you press F1 here, I can get a good breakdown of everything. But I can see that this scale has got three levels here. Honored, devoted, and beloved by Troy. Right there, here, and here. That's at levels 100, 200, and 300, with the last one at 400. But at 400, you actually take control of the opposing heirs faction and the Trojan faction. But the cool thing here is that you've got a way to undermine your sibling. Because remember, you're vying against Hector, who is already kind of seen as a shoo-in against you. So you have these three buttons you can press. And Accuse of Greed means that anytime Hector pulls above you, gold-wise by 300, you can accuse him of greed. Oh, that's going to knock his benevolence down by 10, and this then goes on a 10-turn recycle. Well, I can accuse him of weakness if Hector's been killed and I'm alive. Well, that's going to knock his benevolence down by 10, and it's on a 10-turn recycle. Same thing here with pull rank. Available if your brother and your faction leader are in the same region and your faction leader is of a higher rank. So there's a lot of really cool ways you can play with this scale as you're kind of on a constant knife's edge, vying for control of Troy against Hector. And I like this as a mechanic because it's not just, okay, I'm going to play the Trojan campaign as Paris, and that's my only difference here. Like, there's an actual end goal here in sabotaging your brother and getting control of his faction and the ultimate Trojan faction. So I do like that it's not just simply, we're part of the same cloth, you started in a different location than I do, and have at it. I like that there is an actual opposition between these two. And then to flesh out the Helen My Love mechanic, you can see that right now, she's happy. There's also gloomy, there's lonely. So happy is growth and happiness for whatever province she is visiting. As it gets to gloomy, then it's a -6 to happiness in the province, then to lonely, which is a -10 to happiness in the province. So it shows you how this works too. So happy, if Paris and Helen remain apart, she will become gloomy in 4 turns. If they remain apart again, she will become gloomy in 4 turns. And I think that lonely will only last for 4 turns. Then she'll jump back to gloomy for 4 more turns. Then she'll jump back to lonely in a constant repeating cycle, much like depression is. But we also get 3 buttons over here on the right. We get feast, games, and prayer. So I can invite Helen to any one of these 3 events in the settlements I have available. I can see from this list right here that I only have feasts and games available in Larissa Troas, whereas I cannot do a prayer because I don't have a temple present. And if I press F1, it tells me that feasts, I need a high-level main settlement, demonstration requires a military building, and prayer requires a temple building. So I can choose these and also gain benefits by doing so. So if I choose a grand feast over here in Larissa, where she already resides, I would send the invitation and I would get these benefits. 75 growth, and Pelagian influence and influence over adjacent regions. Whereas demonstration of skill reduces the recruitment costs of all army units, 700 experience of all units per turn own armies in this province, and then gathering a prayer, which increases happiness and favor from priestess rituals. So you can see right out the gate that there are a lot of things that Paris has to deal with. And I actually really enjoy that. Like I said, it's not just so cut and dry. And all of his skills are entirely unique to him, which is another nice thing about Total War Saga Troy, is that no character will play the same outside of the generic heroes that you can summon up. So Formation Specialist, Ambassador of Hermes, all these things. Oh, Hermes, I believe, too, was another one of the ones that was in favor of Paris. But all these things are unique to Paris himself. Every single skill, which is quite nice. Then we have his equipment. He gets Paris's leopard skin, which helps with battle speed and grants stock. The Apple of Discord helps out with the favor of Aphrodite. And then details lineage here, going to help with construction reduction and grants accuracy for missile units. Homeric character, which we talked about before, but basically he cannot die. Epic hero gains influence over this province, helps generate additional rage in battle and morale to the hero, as well as happy, which is, you know, his unique mechanic. So even if we jump over to, oops, sorry, that's the diplomacy button. Even as we jump over here to the Divine Will, we can see that it's the same thing, all the same characters. I think it would have been pretty interesting to see some of the Trojan characters starting at negatives on some of the ones from the Iliad that already were kind of in opposition or already had taken sides with the Greeks against the Trojans. I think that would have been a really interesting touch, but I do appreciate that I can just choose whichever Divine Will I want, because I don't want it to be so hard to progress in the other ones that I'm having to deal with negative penalties. So I guess I could see the give and take of that. And the royal decrees are the exact same here for the Trojans as they are for the Greeks. So this kind of gives you a good idea for how Paris plays different from Menelaus. You can see that Menelaus is all about rapid expansion, right? Menelaus can jump around all throughout these islands and portions of the map that no one else can as quickly as he can. And on top of that, he has a very strong military force, whereas Paris has to deal with this mechanic with his brother and also not expanding too far away from the presence of Helen. At the same time, guarding her. So as we progress through these preview events and we find out more about Total War Saga Troy, I can hopefully kind of give you guys more information about how this will all progress. Like I've said before in the Menelaus video, I think that the battles are probably the one thing that I find lacking the most in Total War Saga Troy. I still want them to be just kind of up to snuff along with Total War Warhammer. And I think I'm spoiled because I love Total War Warhammer's lore. I love everything about what it does from a battle perspective, that I'm kind of just, I have a bias, and that it's unfair to tell you guys, oh, the battle system's not that great, because I always am going to favor Warhammer. But I will say that the battle system has slowed down a little bit, so it is a little bit more enjoyable. It's still a little bit clunky though at the same time, so I'm not going to give full marks there. I still think that the best thing going for it is the overarching campaign map for Troy Saga. I think just like Three Kingdoms, I'm going to enjoy playing the campaign map more so than the battle map, which is unfortunate though, because this is a Total War game. And one of the biggest and most fun portions of a Total War game is playing on that battle map. So go ahead and let me know what you think in the comment section below, guys. I know this video was a lot faster than our Menelaus video, but like I said, there wasn't a whole ton to cover outside of these unique mechanics for Paris. Let me know what you're thinking about some of the other previews you've seen from either Total War Official, from some of the other content creators who have been covering both Paris and Menelaus, and let me know what you think. Do you think that this game is going to be amazing on launch? Do you think it's going to be able to go the distance? I think for a Saga game, it shows more promise than Thrones of Britannia. but it does not show the promise of a full Total War game. I think that's the best way to sum it up in one sentence without getting into the nuance of every little thing. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment below, all that kind of action. And if you do subscribe, please go ahead and hit that little bell icon and turn on all notifications. This helps me out a ton. This way you can find out when I do any of my Total War Saga Troy, God, that is a mouthful, Total War Saga Troy guides, any of my game giveaways, streams, all sorts of stuff that I do on the channel every day. But as always, have a good one and take care.